Get the steaming iron. Don't embarrass me tonight. The text from my mother flashed across my phone screen at 6:43 p.m., just as I was adjusting the diamond clasp of my earrings in the bathroom mirror of a hotel suite that cost more per night than my parents' car. A second message followed immediately, this time from my sister. Sasha. The maid is late. Hurry up. I spilled wine on the white rug and I have guests coming in an hour. Don't make me look bad. I stared at the words, the familiar entitlement radiating from the screen like heat. They thought I was at home in my uniform, waiting by the phone for their commands. They had no idea I was standing in a $5,000 gown, about to walk into a ballroom filled with people who actually knew my worth. I looked at my reflection one last time. The woman in the mirror wasn't a maid. She wasn't a servant. She was the architect of her own life. And she was done building castles for people who only wanted to lock her in the basement. Before I tell you what I texted back, and how they reacted when they saw my face on national television an hour later, drop a comment. Where are you watching from? And have you ever been underestimated by your own family? I didn't cry. I didn't throw the phone across the room or scream into a pillow like the hysterical daughter they expected me to be. Panic is for people who don't have a plan. And my entire career is built on having 5 plans before the crisis even happens. I looked at the timestamp. 6:45 p.m. If I left now, I would arrive at the red carpet exactly on schedule. If I went to them, I would spend the night on my knees scrubbing vintage wool with club soda while Sasha recorded videos in the background. The choice wasn't emotional. It was a business decision. And I was cutting my losses. My thumbs moved over the screen with the same precision I used to catalog inventory for insurance claims. I typed 2 sentences. I am not a maid. And you can't afford my rates. I didn't wait for the bubbles to appear. I didn't wait for the inevitable barrage of guilt trips, the threats to uninvite me from Christmas, or the accusations of selfishness. I did something I hadn't done since I signed my first contract 5 years ago. I held down the power button on the side of my phone and slid the bar to off. The screen went black. The silence that followed was heavy, tangible. For 5 years, that device had been a leash. I answered calls at 3 a.m. when a client's alarm system malfunctioned. I answered texts during dinner when my mother couldn't find the remote. I had trained them to believe that my availability was an infinite resource, free for the taking. But tonight, the shop was closed. I dropped the phone into my clutch, the metal clicking against my lipstick. It felt like dropping a stone into a deep well. My name is Mira Vance. I'm 29 years old, and to the city of Miami, I am a ghost. I don't appear in tabloids. I don't tag my location. But the people who own this city, the ones whose names are on the hospitals and the stadiums, they know exactly who I am. They trust me with the codes to their vaults, the schedules of their children, and the secrets that could destroy their reputations. I am a luxury estate curator. I don't just manage homes. I curate lives. I ensure that the air conditioning is set to 68 degrees before the jet lands, that the art is rotated seasonally, and that the chaos of the world never touches the pristine white carpets of the 1%. My family thinks I'm a glorified housekeeper because I wear black and carry a toolkit. They think I serve the rich because I'm desperate. They don't understand that in my world, the person holding the keys holds the power. I walked out of the suite, the heavy door latching shut behind me with a satisfying thud. The hallway stretched out, lined with sconces and plush carpet, leading me away from the life they tried to assign me and toward the one I had built brick by quiet brick. I stepped into the elevator and pressed the button for the lobby. The Gilded Palm Gala was waiting. It wasn't just a party. It was the industry's highest honor, a night where the invisible hands that kept the luxury world spinning were finally seen. Tonight, I wasn't going to be the girl with the steamer. I was going to be the woman on the stage. The elevator descent was smooth, a fast drop toward destiny. I checked my reflection in the polished brass doors. No fear. No hesitation. Just the cold, sharp clarity of someone who has finally realized that you cannot save people who are determined to drown you. To my family, the matte black attire and the heavy, impact-resistant case I carry every day are the uniforms of a maid. To the billionaires of Fisher Island and the art collectors of Star Island, they are the hallmarks of a conservator. They see the white cotton gloves and assume I'm afraid to leave fingerprints on their cheap glass tables. They don't know those gloves are the only thing standing between the oils of a human hand and a canvas painted 300 years before they were born. For 5 years, I have lived a double life. But not the kind you see in spy movies. There were no fake passports. Just a silence so thick it could choke you. I am a high-level preservationist. My job is to ensure that entropy does not touch the assets of the ultra-wealthy. I monitor humidity levels in climate-controlled vaults. I transport jewelry that requires an armed escort. I sign non-disclosure agreements that are thicker than phone books, promising that I will never speak the names of my clients or the location of their treasures. That silence was my professional obligation, But at home, it became my cage. I remember a Thanksgiving 3 years ago. I had spent the morning in a private gallery, supervising the installation of a sculpture worth $12 million. The artist had shaken my hand, thanked me for my precision, and treated me like a peer. I drove straight to my parents' house, still wearing my work blacks because I didn't have time to change. The moment I walked through the door, my mother didn't ask how my day was. She didn't offer me a drink. She thrust a toilet brush and a bottle of bleach into my hands. "Sasha's friends are coming over," she said, not even looking me in the eye. "Scrub the guest bath. It smells like mildew. At least you're good at cleaning things." I took the brush. I walked down the hall and I scrubbed the grout until my knuckles turned white. Looking back, I want to shake that version of myself. I want to ask her why she didn't throw the bleach at the wall and walk out. But I know why. It's the trap of normalized cruelty. When you grow up in a house where your value is measured solely by your utility, you stop noticing the disrespect. It becomes ambient, like the hum of a refrigerator or the traffic outside. You don't fight the weather. And for 29 years, their disdain was just the weather. I told myself I was keeping the peace. I told myself that the NDA bound my tongue, that I couldn't legally explain why I was exhausted or why my clothes smelled like museum-grade solvent. But there was a darker, sharper truth underneath the submission. Their ignorance was a shield. If they knew I was managing estates, if they knew my signature could authorize payments larger than their mortgage, the demands wouldn't be for clean toilets. They would be for cash. They would want loans for Sasha's failed ventures, investments for my father's bad ideas. By letting them believe I was a servant, I protected the one thing they couldn't touch: my success. I let them have their superiority, and in exchange, I kept my money. But shields get heavy, and armor eventually starts to rust. As the taxi turned onto the causeway, the lights of the gala venue cutting through the night sky, I realized I was done protecting them from the reality of who I was. They had treated me like a servant because it made them feel like royalty. They were about to learn that you should never hand a mop to the person who owns the building. While I was watching the city lights blur past the taxi window, my sister was busy destroying a $50,000 asset. I know this because Unit 4B, the penthouse Sasha claimed she bought with crypto earnings, is actually a staging unit for my firm, and I have high-definition security feeds on my phone. I didn't check them in the cab. I was too busy mentally compartmentalizing my family into the spam folder of my life. But I watched the footage later. It was instructive. Sasha was 3 glasses of Merlot deep, holding court in the living room with a dozen friends she'd met on social media. She was trying to pop a bottle of champagne with a saber she bought online. It didn't go well. The neck of the bottle shattered. The pressure exploded, and a geyser of red wine and glass shards sprayed across the white alpaca wool rug I had imported from Peru 2 weeks ago. On the screen, the room went silent. Sasha didn't grab a towel. She didn't apologize. She looked at the stains spreading like a gunshot wound on the pristine white wool, and screamed, "My aesthetic! It's ruined!" She turned to our mother, Linda, who was sitting on the beige velvet sectional I'd forbidden them to eat on. "Call the help!" Sasha shrieked. "Call Mira! She has that steamer thing. Tell her to get here now before the lighting changes." Linda picked up her phone. I saw the timestamp on the video match the vibration in my clutch. She left a voicemail. I listened to it later, standing on a balcony overlooking the ocean, holding a glass of vintage champagne. Her voice was sharp, toxic, vibrating with the indignation of a woman who believes the world owes her comfortable furniture. "You selfish girl. Your sister is in crisis. She is weeping, Mira. We know you're just sitting in that little apartment watching TV. If you don't come fix this right now, don't bother coming for Christmas. We don't need people who don't contribute." They weren't worried about me. They weren't asking if I was okay. They were furious that their favorite appliance had stopped working. They viewed my time, my skill, and my dignity as a resource they could mine until the vein ran dry. But they had made a critical calculation error. They thought they were threatening to cut me off from the family. They didn't realize they were threatening me with a good time. I walked up the steps of the Gilded Palm Hotel, and the air changed. The humidity of Miami vanished, replaced by the crisp, expensive chill of central air conditioning. The noise of the street faded into the hushed murmur of power. At the check-in desk, I didn't have to say my name. The head of security, a man named Marcus who used to be Secret Service, caught my eye and gave a sharp nod. He unclipped the velvet rope before I even reached it. "Good evening, Miss Vance," he said. "You're at table 1. "Thank you, Marcus." Table 1 wasn't for guests. It was for the board. I walked into the ballroom, the chandeliers casting a golden glow over 300 of the wealthiest people in Florida. To my family, I was the girl who scrubbed grout. In this room, I was the gatekeeper. I saw the faces of clients I had protected from scandals, divorces, and paparazzi. A tech mogul raised his glass to me. A famous actress winked. They knew that their privacy existed only because I maintained it. I made my way to the front, where Julian Thorne was waiting. Julian is a legend in estate management. He manages the kind of wealth that buys countries. He stood up when I approached, buttoning his tuxedo jacket. "You look like a weapon, Mira," he said, smiling. "Black suits you, but diamonds suit you better." "I decided to dress for the job I actually have," I said, taking the seat beside him. He slid a leather folder across the white tablecloth. There was no fanfare, no long speech. "The Fisher Island contract," he said quietly. "The owner specifically requested you. He fired his last 3 curators. He said they talked too much. He heard you were impenetrable." I opened the folder. The numbers were staggering. A $1 million retainer for 2 years of exclusive lifestyle architecture, full control over a private island estate, an art collection worth $500 million, and a staff of 40. I picked up the heavy fountain pen. My hand didn't shake. While my mother was screaming into my voicemail about a rug in a condo she didn't own, I was signing my name to a document that gave me control over more assets than she could earn in 100 lifetimes. I capped the pen and slid the folder back. "Done," I said. Julian poured me a glass of water. "Congratulations. You just joined the 7-figure club. How does it feel?" "It feels," I said, glancing at my silent phone, "like I finally changed the locks." Back at the penthouse, the atmosphere had shifted from party to damage control. I know this because the security feed recorded every frame of their unraveling. Sasha, desperate to salvage her night after the wine disaster, had decided to pivot. If she couldn't host a perfect party, she would pretend she was digitally attending the biggest event of the year. She turned on the massive 85-inch television in the living room and streamed the Gilded Palm Gala live feed. She positioned her ring light in front of the screen, aiming her phone so her followers could see the gala in the background. "Guys," she chirped into her camera, her voice tight with forced cheer, "we are literally watching the Gilded Palm right now. My connections are there. We were supposed to go, but I decided to host an intimate gathering instead. So much more exclusive." She was preening, fixing her hair, waiting for someone famous to appear on the screen behind her so she could point and scream. She wanted a prop. She got a predator. On the screen, the room darkened. A spotlight hit the center stage. The host, a woman whose face has graced the cover of Vogue 3 times, stepped up to the microphone. The host announced the golden key for excellence in discretion, praising the unseen guardian who protected the world's most private fortunes. Sasha wasn't listening. She was watching her live stream numbers. Then the name was read. Mira Vance. On the security feed, I saw Sasha freeze, champagne glass suspended midair. The camera cut to me rising from table 1, dressed in ivory silk, diamonds catching the lights. I walked to the stage calmly. Not as staff, but as authority. In the penthouse, my father stared at the screen. "Is that Mira?" "It can't be," Sasha whispered. "She's supposed to be cleaning." I accepted the trophy and looked directly into the camera. "True power doesn't need to scream," I said. "It just needs to own the keys." The room erupted in applause. Sasha dropped her phone, live streaming her humiliation to a dozen viewers. In that moment, she understood. The woman she ordered to scrub floors controlled access to the world she wanted to enter. Minutes later, outside, my family arrived in panic, sweaty, disheveled, screaming. Sasha accused me of fraud, demanded introductions. My mother screamed about lost money. They thought noise would force me to surrender. Instead, I handed Sasha a document. She never owned the penthouse. It was a staging unit belonging to my firm. She was listed as a live-in caretaker because she couldn't afford rent. By live streaming a party and destroying property, she had violated her contract. I instructed security to evict her immediately. Sasha collapsed, screaming. My parents stood stunned as police arrived. I got into my car and drove away. At the red light, I blocked every family contact. Then I messaged my team. "Unit 4B is vacant. Begin deep cleaning at 8 a.m. Change the codes." As I crossed the causeway, Miami glittered ahead. I wasn't a maid. I wasn't a servant. I was the architect of my own peace, and for the first time, the foundation was solid. If you've ever had to fire your own family to save yourself, you're not alone.